Katie Phillips is here to talk to us on her project Beneath the Streets, new tools for managing degrading sewer infrastructure. Not as natural a system as backyard biodiversity, but still as important to our survival here in these urban settings. And Katie's going to tell us what she did with the City of Tempe and some local businesses here in Tempe.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's not going to be as pretty as backyard and gardening, but it'll be just as fun, I promise. So, yeah, so like he said, my project is Beneath the Streets, new tools for managing degrading sewer infrastructure, and today we're going to talk about fats, oils, and grease and why it's an important future for renewable energy. Cool. So we're going to talk about a lot in 10 minutes or less, so bear with me, but we're going to talk about my project background, how infrastructure and sustainability tie together, my 5 intervention points, and then we'll have questions at the end. And this industry has a lot of jargon, so if you get lost, I've put a little cheat sheet at the bottom for you. Sorry, those in the back, you probably can't see it, but if you get lost, they're at the bottom. So let's start with what is FOG. So FOG stands for fats, oils, and grease. And these are cooking byproducts derived from plant and animal sources. This pollutant is usually captured at the restaurant in a pretreatment device known as a grease trap or grease interceptor. And when these devices degrade or fail, FOG becomes much like the cholesterol of our sewer system, creating blockages, odors, and in extreme cases, sanitary sewer overflows. And it looks super nasty. But FOG is also has great potential as a renewable energy resource. So FOG is the only organic waste that can be both independently transformed into a biofuel, but also has high efficiencies as a feedstock blending component. There's a lot of opportunity for energy with FOG, although now we currently treat it as a waste. So how does Tempe manage FOG? Well, there's this cool program called the Tempe Grease Cooperative, but to understand that, we first need to talk about the traditional model. So in the traditional model, restaurant owners are required to monitor and assess the quality of third-party vendors and services to ensure that they align with plumbing codes and ordinances dictated by the municipality. This often comes with limited success and can result in extreme infrastructure degradation concerns with a high loss of resource. Tempe changed the game, and now in Tempe, the burden of monitoring and assessing third-party pumping services has become the responsibility of the utility. Restaurants can voluntarily enroll to purchase grease compliance through a business advocacy model rather than the traditional regulation model. This ensures that restaurants get compliant services and city has ownership over the waste for anaerobic digestion. After 4 years of implementation, 20% of Tempe's restaurants are serviced through the co-op. Approximately 600,000 gallons of waste have been collected, which has the energy potential of 4.8 million cubic feet of biogas. The purchasing model has saved our members over $92,000 in service costs, and the city saves over $250,000 per year in treatment costs at the wastewater treatment plant. So a lot of success. However, there are some challenges. So the first being that pretreatment devices degrade easily. And Tempe manages this through a combination of regulatory compliance and the cooperative model. But these devices and their construction can still break down even with proper cleaning frequencies, and they look like a disaster like that. Tempe compliance rates mean that restaurants are serviced or inspected every 2 years. But TGC members have increased scrutiny with monthly device checks from their services because the city manages them. And finally, resource recovery is limited by infrastructure. So estimates show that annually in Tempe from failing devices, up to 1,215,000 pounds of FOG are being discharged into our sewers, and most importantly, lost as a resource. So these challenges needed to be addressed in my project, and they're some of the biggest challenges facing the cooperative model today. But let's take a step back and talk about how infrastructure and sustainability come together. So we have this understanding in sustainability that our interventions must be holistic and relevant to stakeholder needs. But the sustainable infrastructure and sustainable development literature do not take a holistic approach in encompassing what's called hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure. So hard infrastructure is anything related to our physical environment, such as roads and sewer pipes, and soft infrastructure is the human capital or non-tangible program-related infrastructure. And during my project, when we combine these two, we end up with this challenge that I coined the Sustainability Buy-in Challenge, where businesses or individuals must front costs to participate in a sustainability solution. So the other component of my project is tackling this challenge, and it comes down to how businesses and municipalities interact with the idea of sustainability. Restaurants are not in the FOG business, and they're met with cost and information barriers to participating in the sustainability vision of the TGC. We see this across other green initiatives such as gray water recovery, solar energy, and low-use irrigation. So it was important to find a solution to this problem throughout my project. So I created what's called the infrastructure assistance model, which had to encompass a lot of areas, each with their own challenges and stakeholder needs, such as infrastructure compliance, restaurant equity and advocacy, and resource recovery. And ultimately, the question became, how can municipalities sustainably manage the issue of degrading fog pretreatment infrastructure? We're going to go over my 5 intervention points, which are in this nested model that starts at the very top at the environmental services level with program recommendations to go into the future. The environmental compliance level, which is the fog resource packet, the Tempe Grease Cooperative, which is the repairs and compliance program, and finally the infrastructure assistance program, which includes the vendor registry and the grease trap assistance program. And we're going to blaze through all of these, so buckle up. So the vendor registry is a list of non-contractual grease-related services and vendors for the TGC to help members address infrastructure needs outside normal pumping and cleaning. And this is really important because normal procurement processes in government can take 1, 2, 3 years. And we needed quick service for our restaurants to manage their infrastructure. So this new model allows us to objectively vet vendors in order to connect them to our members for their infrastructure needs. The Grease Trap Assistance Program is a revolving fund to help creditworthy businesses spread the cost of grease trap upgrades over 1 to 2 years. Revolving funds are really unique in their ability to sustainably leverage funds over time, as the rate of repayment and loan distribution is in theory the same, and this in turn lowers interest values for the businesses. The fund is regenerative over time, which means it's the best method to maximize city dollars while also helping local businesses manage their infrastructure with sustainability in mind. So then, moving up from there, we get to the Tempe Grease Cooperative and the Repairs and Compliance Program, which is an internal process that encompasses device condition, coordinating repair vendors, communicating infrastructure, and providing compliance assurance. And in this new structure, the name of the game became standardizing our language and utilizing our pumpers as eyes on the ground. And this ultimately demystified the process of repairs. So based on a survey of degrading traps that I did for the TGC, I transitioned the program to a list of common repairs with corresponding compliance actions to reduce the administrative burden both internally and externally, and to again utilize our pumpers as our allies, because that's an important relationship we have in the co-op, and that made this model work much better, and we're able to address repairs quickly and efficiently. Moving up from there, we get to environmental compliance and the fog resource packet. So after repairs and replacements had been identified, the TGC and environmental compliance really needed a tool to effectively communicate infrastructure needs to restaurants, which is why I created the fog resource packet, which is a document utilizing educational strategies to outline fog infrastructure replacement and best management practices. So as I said, restaurants are not in the fog business, and communication tools are really important for the soft infrastructure intervention points because it reduces the chance for mistakes to be made out of ignorance, which can lead to costly enforcement for the city, and restaurants redoing construction projects, which is obviously going to be extremely costly for them. So communication is a really underutilized tool, but is really important to this model. And finally, based on my literature review, degrading device survey, and stakeholder engagement, I composed 2 formal recommendations for the TGC and City of Tempe to align with their strategic priorities. The first being to incentivize non-corrosive, high-performing plastic trap materials in the Grease Trap Assistance Program, and the second being to push for a citywide ordinance change where new build restaurants or restaurants putting in a new pretreatment device are automatically enrolled in the Tempe Grease Cooperative, and this is for a variety of benefits. The first being that non-sustainable building materials would not be perpetuated through a city-funded grease trap replacement program, and restaurants are able to invest in the best possible grease protection technology. And second, new grease devices would be managed properly from the very beginning rather than being caught as a problem 1 to 2 years later. And then this in turn lowers fog bypass and allows the city to collect more resource for biogas generation. So with these interventions, it's estimated that the 85% compliance rate, which is the strategic goal for the Tempe Grease Cooperative, can be achieved in the 5-year time that they had planned for that. And this illustrates why combining hard and soft infrastructure principles for local sustainability solutions is the key for future green initiatives. The built environment is the foundation for our sustainable future, and it's time that we start taking a more holistic approach to our interventions. And that's my project in 10 minutes or less. If you have questions, now would be the time.